Well, on Outsiders, we bring you the voices you do not get to hear in the mainstream media. Today, we are speaking to one of the most polarising and well-known commentators in the UK, a media personality, columnist and businesswoman once described as the most hated woman in Britain, a household name in Britain who began her media career on The Apprentice and went on to become a much-loved, hated and feared columnist with several British newspapers before hosting her own TV show and her own radio show. A musical has been written about her assassination. A true pommy outsider, our guest is a massive Trump fan. She was also a fierce supporter of Brexit, a critic of uncontrolled immigration in Europe, and is a constant irritant to the woke, open borders, climate lovies of Britain and around the world. She has been accused by her many critics of racism, of fat-shaming, of Islamophobia, being anti-feminist, and so on. By inviting her on our show, I point out the three of us do not necessarily support or share her views, but we are interested in her work and her popularity with over 1 million followers on Twitter. Is she a bigoted, misogynist, racist, homophobe? Or is she a voice of common sense? You decide for yourself. One thing for sure, she's entertaining. Welcome to Outsiders, Katie Hopkins.
Thank you very much for having me on. And I should point out, it doesn't matter to me whether people think I'm a jolly good laugh or whether they think I'm a racist, bigoted, Islamophobic, fat-shaming fool, because ultimately it's not other people's opinion that matters. I have my views. These are my own views. I'm proud of them, and they're my authentic views. I am a straight, white, Christian, conservative, married, surprisingly, mother of 3 children, and I'm proud to be all of those things. And where I come from here in the UK, I am right up there with the endangered species. I'm right up there with the black rhino, but he has an advantage because he is a minority. So that's where I come from. And frankly, I'm not bothered about other people's opinions on me.
Katie, what does it feel like to have a musical funded by the taxpayer that's called The Assassination of Katie Hopkins, playing in the West End?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one. So because of my views, because I'm outspoken about the fact that my country is being taken over, that by 2035, just 15 years' time, Muslims will outnumber births to any other religion and or none. So we are being outnumbered here. Because I'm outspoken about these obvious facts that are a cause for concern, I was the target of a jihadi plot to behead me. And the British government weren't satisfied with that plot to behead me, so they came out and funded a play called The Assassination of Katie Hopkins, and they put up billboards around the country promoting that as well. And that's just bearing in mind that I've never been convicted of a hate crime. I have never, ever been, I don't have any criminal records. All I am is a mother of 3 kids who's worried about my country. I went through Sandhurst. I am a member of the British forces. I was supposed to serve a 35-year regular commission. All I'm doing is fighting for my country. And of course, that's something the woke brigade just cannot stand.
Of course they can't. Now let's just discuss, we're going to talk about South Africa in a second because you've made a documentary called The Killing Fields. But first up, I just want your thoughts on this happy morning. Boris is going to have another baby.
Yay! Hooray, hooray, hooray. So I should say, I love Boris Johnson. I think he's fantastic. He's exuberant. He's brilliantly clever. He can recite Homer's Odyssey from memory. He speaks fluent Greek, fluent Latin. So another Boris Johnson on this planet is going to be a terrific thing. Boris and Trump together is just what a moment to be alive. I couldn't be happier. With Boris and Trump together, it's like having Reagan and Thatcher back if both their hairdressers had special educational needs. But Boris Johnson, we have a beautiful MP in the UK. You probably know of him, called Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Yes.
Probably the poshest man, in the whole of the UK. He called his 6th child Sixtus. S-E-X-T-U-S, Sixtus. So we're wondering what Boris is going to call his baby, but no one really knows how many babies Boris Johnson's had, so that may be a challenge. He's a very fertile individual, very, very fertile individual.
Oh, goodness.
And, I think that I think that best represents the average British male, actually. The best of British are very fertile gentlemen and, you know, the very best of us.
Rita.
Oh, goodness me. I don't know if I want to picture that, Boris being fertile, but I want to just ask you, you made that comparison between Thatcher and Reagan and now with Trump and Johnson, but is he worthy of being compared to Thatcher? I've always seen him as wishy-washy, and I just want to ask you about signing up to this 2050 net zero emissions, and we've now just had the Heathrow decision. The third runway is out because it's not going to help you meet your climate targets. So how is he going to handle this going forward?
Oh, it's just the dullness, isn't it, of the whole green mafia that we have to endure constantly. I'm just sick to death of all of them. We've just had the little Greta Thunberg in Bristol, a little city we have here in England, and, you know, 35,000 school kids brought together, all of them bunking off school. They're supposed to be in school. Normally parents like me are fined if our children don't go to school, but it's OK if they're all turning up to watch this little kid in a raincoat tell us that the world is on fire. Well, funnily enough, when you're standing in the pouring rain in Bristol with 35 other posh school kids, the world really isn't on fire. They were in a mud bath. No, Greta, the world's not on fire. It's just constantly raining, love. It's constantly raining. And the other thing about Greta Thunberg is all of these poshos, and it's always the posho kids. It's always the ones who've got all the cash. They've only just got back from their skiing trips. It's why half of them have got the coronavirus in the first place, is because they just came back from northern Italy. So they're stood there with their coronavirus, 35,000 of them all together. I mean, hopefully many more will come down with the damn thing before the day's over.
Come on.
Oh, calm yourselves, calm yourselves. It's all right. You're inoculated. You've already said you don't agree with anything I say. And actually, I want to call you guys out on this as well. You, in particular, Rowan, you sit there and you say, blah, 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 defend freedom of speech. But I don't agree with anything that was said. And it's one of the most annoying things that you can do, is try and inoculate yourself by saying, I don't agree with this. You guys wouldn't defend freedom of speech because you don't have it in Australia anymore. We don't have it here in the UK anymore either. And you'd no point quoting Voltaire like you came up with something clever, because frankly, no one would defend freedom of speech to their death because we don't have it anymore. Good Australians that I know and I love, they self-censor everywhere they go because they can no longer speak about how they think or how they feel. And it's the mechanism of control, and it's why your neighbours in New Zealand are ripe for being taken over by the religion of peace, because they're already on bended knee, and Australia can't afford for that to happen. So I think you need to stop caveating your guests and your comments with, I don't believe in anything they said, or I don't defend it. I think you need to be a bit more robust in what you're doing.
That's very good criticism, very valid criticism, and you're absolutely right, Katie, that in Australia, free speech over the last couple of years has gone out the window. It has gone. And we've seen some terrible examples of that, and we see them all the time. I want to ask you about South Africa, your work with the killing fields. Tell us about the documentary and how you came to do that.
Well, I've always been someone, so I consider it my job to tell the things not being told. I consider it my job to be out there on the pavements, on the sidewalks, finding the stories and telling the truth. So I think too many boys spend too much time sitting in studios behind bright lights, and not enough of them spend time going out to see what they're actually talking about. I've travelled with migrants across the Med. I've slept on Skid Row in LA. And with the killing of the white farmers in South Africa, I went to the farms in South Africa. I slept on white farms with farmers, with victims, with widows who have lost their husbands, to better understand the genocide of the whites that I am very clear is happening. Whites are being killed in South Africa at a rate 5 times that which is normal, the murder rate in South Africa, 3 times the rate of the South African police service. And when people say, well, this is just typical, it's a very dangerous country. Well, yes, it is. But if you look at the way that these white farmers are hunted down, they are then tortured in their homes for hours upon end with blow torches, with hot irons. They are strung up with wire. Really, really devastating, and it breaks my heart that Australia has gone back on its offer to give refugee status to South Africans. Truly, at the moment, I think it's just today, actually, in your country, you're saying they don't deserve refugee status. And what I would say to anybody who has something to say about South Africa is, why don't you go? Why don't you go and sleep on the white farms at night? Because at night is when the monsters come. And they don't stop at anything. They are out to kill the Boer. They have a song called Kill the Boer. It is a politicised genocide of the white farmer. They're down to about 4% now. And within my lifetime and yours, there will be no white farmers left in South Africa. But because they are the wrong colour, the world is prepared to look the other way, and Australia has just decided to do the same. And the more that I can help people understand what's going on the ground, please do have a look at my documentary, Killing Fields. I speak to one of the farm murderers who talks about why they rape 3- and 4-year-olds, the children of the farmers. It's a powerful documentary. It also involves members of the South African Police Service who know that they are also complicit in the genocide of the whites. It's the weapons of the police service being used against the white farmers. So time is running out for the white farmer. I guess the question is, now that Australia has turned its back on them, who will they go to next? Where do they run to? Because they are poor people, they have nowhere to go.
You're absolutely right, Katie. It is shameful that what our government has done. Peter Dutton, the Home Affairs Minister, was all for at one stage allowing South African farmers in. We on this show have repeatedly argued for that, putting out the red carpet because we can't think of anyone better to bring into the country, particularly
yes.
Paul Tuia did a really excellent report for News Corp going to South Africa.
Yeah.
Talking to the farmers, just exploring exactly what's happening there. And the stories are harrowing, just absolutely horrific accounts of violence and intimidation.
And what is clear, Katie, is that the bureaucrats, our left-wing bureaucrats in Canberra, have got in and pulled the rug on this. You're absolutely right that it's disgraceful. James?
Oh, I was just going to ask, I mean, just to follow up on this, we have seen some good reporting on this, but not enough. I want to know, is South Africa going down the same road as Zimbabwe?
Yes, absolutely. So Zimbabwe was the breadbasket of South Africa. Because the white farmers were culled from the land there, it is now in absolute famine. They're going to be requiring food aid and are requiring it. South Africa is following directly behind that. So the more that you chase whites off the land, you can't just put, respectfully, a black individual onto that farm. They don't just become a farmer, and very often these farms are just looted. Everything is stripped from that farm. It's no longer a viable farm. Those white farmers are needed in order to feed South Africa. But you know what's going to happen? They're going to hit famine, and when they hit famine, they're going to blame it on climate change, and then they're going to say that we need aid from Britain, from Australia, from other countries, people like me who've been warning about this. And for my troubles, may I just say, I was detained when I tried to leave the country because they didn't want me reporting on this, and I have been banned from South Africa for spreading racial hatred. That's the definition of the ANC for talking about white farmers in South Africa. So I have paid a personal price for that, as I have with much of my speaking out. But I'm still determined to fight the good fight for these farmers. And if you listen to their stories now, they are planning. Each weekend they meet up and they're planning to make a last stand, a final retreat to defendable space where they will make a last stand for their country. This truly is biblical and epic in proportion, and actually it is a look forward. It is a glimpse into the future of Great Britain, because in Great Britain right now people are working out where they are going to go, where will they leave when our country is finally taken over. This stuff is big stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And Katie, you urge people to watch your documentary. Now, I want to go back to, you've rightly said that you have suffered enormously for speaking out, for speaking your truth, and you've lost your house, you've been cancelled. This is the thing that the left are now doing, this cancel culture. You've been off Twitter, on in this magazine, off that radio station. Tell us what it's like to be persecuted in this way.
Well, first up, I accept everything that comes my way. So I put myself out here. I have to suck it up. If I don't like it, then I can go home, I can sit on my sofa and I can be quiet. So tough toughness for me. You know, I've just got to suck this up. But as a result of speaking out about the truths of my country, I have been arrested and interviewed under caution because of a column in a newspaper. I have been arrested and challenged because I made the point that Pakistani grooming gangs are made up of majority Pakistani Muslim men. I was arrested for that. I have lost every job I ever had. I was a columnist, successful columnist, most read columnist at Mail Online for 2 years, lost that job, lost my radio show. And then they came for my house. They made a new law just for me. How lucky I am that said, I can cause you serious harm if you perceive that I have caused you serious harm, and you don't need to prove it. And to isolate myself from all of the attacks, I have sold everything. I own nothing, and I have nothing. And that, in a way, has been very freeing. In order for me to obtain my freedom of speech, I have given up everything. And that's a very willing, that's a sacrifice I'm being very willing to make, because I'm so proud and pleased and delighted to have such strong supporters and followers. And I really thank the people that keep me going, because they really matter. They are the light that guides the way. And I think people like me are needed, because the more of us that have the moral courage to stand up and speak the truth of our countries, it helps to just push back the walls for a little bit longer and make other people feel that they're not alone. Because the truth of your audience is that it is lonely. People are lonely out there because they feel that no one else shares their opinion, or they can't get to people that feel the same way. And I think these days, at these times, people are lonelier than they've ever been in their lifetime or at any time in history. And I'm here really to tell people you're not alone. There's many of us. We're a silent army, but we're a strong one. And anytime you need me, I'm right here for you at KT Hopkins, capital K, capital T Hopkins.
Katie Hopkins, thanks so much for coming on today. Absolute privilege and pleasure to have you on. You will have given a lot of people a lot to think about, and I hope we see you again. And keep up a great fight.
Thank you very much.
So many people are supporting you and behind you. Thank you, Katie Hopkins.
Thank you.
There you go, scared of the coronavirus? Wait till you hear what our epidemiologist has to say about life in the hot zone. And James Donkeyboat back in a tick.